Our delusion is that everything's going to change when we get that thing. But contentment is not a state of having, it's a state of being. And we back with another ep on the Daily Vedantic, and today's reflection is on 2 words of advice that Swami will give often at the ashram, and that is that nothing happens. He'll often give this advice when someone is asking about a fork in the road, or doing something hard, or with the risk about taking some step. And he'll say, do it. Nothing happens. Nothing happens anyway. Nothing happens. One of the best surfers in the world, John John Florence, when he won his 2nd world title, he's coming off beach and he's coming up to reporters and everybody's celebrating. And this reporter asks, "What's it like to win Surfer of the Year? 2 times in a row, to be a world champion 2 times in a row." And he said, "Nothing changes." He had already kind of seen the other side of winning in the first championship, that nothing really changed 4 days later, a month later. So I'm sure that added immense weight to this perspective. But he said, nothing really changes. I've been surfing every day of my life since I was 3 years old. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go surfing with my brothers. Nothing really changes. And it left the interviewer speechless. Like, where do you go from there? There's nothing to latch on to question-wise. You're kind of spinning because you want to show some shiny new thing to all of the viewers to keep their attention. And he's saying, there's nothing really shiny here. There's nothing to look at. Nothing changes. Swami's words of nothing happens. Think about it. It's like they say, after 6 weeks, your raise just becomes your salary. After a fragment of time, whatever big milestone we thought we hit, nothing really changes. And that's often the most disorienting part. A good friend of mine, Justin Kahn, sold his company Twitch to Amazon, and they sold it for $1 billion. It's $970 million. And he said a few months later, he spent four days in bed. He couldn't get out of bed for 4 days. Imagine not getting out of bed till 7 p.m. for one day. But for 4 days, he was in such a depression, he couldn't get out of bed. Our delusion is that everything's going to change when we get that thing. But contentment is not a state of having, it's a state of being. It's not found in these things that we're told by, at every turn in our culture, that get these things and then you will have this state of being. The message we are not told is that nothing happens. When you buy this $80,000 car, not much is going to change in your life. Get that raise. Finally get the PhD after 9 years. It's actually the biggest spike within professions. The biggest spike of mental health crises is people right after they get their PhD. Because they realize what John John realized the first go around of winning a world championship. Nothing really changes. That distance, separation, dysfunctional relationship with his dad, it didn't really change when he won a world championship. That longing for security didn't really change when that person won the lottery. I remember the first time a bunch of zeros hit my bank account after we sold our company. And I remember getting a parking ticket that afternoon and being as bummed about that as I was elated 6 hours prior. Just really bummed of like, man, this is an injustice. They didn't see that I have the right, permit to park here right outside of our house. And I think about that so often. Think about that so often that, man, nothing really changes. Despite a milestone I worked maybe a decade for. To hit the bank account, and I was discontent about $72. As discontent as I would have been 2 weeks prior, 5 years prior. Nothing really changes. It's beautiful because when we can look that in the eye, entertain this ideal that nothing happens, that these shifts in the world around us don't change our inner state. Because our inner states, our state of being, is not a state of having, and accumulating these 10,000 things doesn't seem to change our state of being. When that clicks, try it out. By all means, exhaust it through experience. Go get those things to know that, wow, nothing really happens. It's freedom. That ideal is freedom, because then we're free from needing this to happen, or, oh, my security is right around the corner. It's freedom because one of the episodes that we chatted about recently, the root of the word security is freedom from care, not having that thing, not being durable, stable, firm foundation. It's actually being free from care. It's less. It's not more. And when we're told these things, wealth, relationships, status, name, when we're told they aren't it, that nothing will happen when those things happen. It's freedom. We're no longer bound by this 10,000 thing checklist. We might be bound by wherever we are, and we need those certain things. And some things, like I said, you've got to exhaust through experience. Go and do it by all means. Check them off the list. But it starts to reinforce this message over and over again of, wow, nothing really happens. These things, they aren't it. Maybe it's this inner work, this internal ideal, this inner state of being, not a state of having, that I should work towards. And, I tried this financial milestone. Maybe I'll try reading that book that guy on YouTube keeps talking about, Vedantic treatise. Maybe I'll start reflecting on some of these ideals a little bit more. Because the ideal of ideals is the ability to discern reality from non-reality, reality from illusion. The illusion is it's out there. The reality is you're it. You can't jump there. You can't skip levels like we mentioned in previous episodes of just, you got to know your level. But the ideal is you're it. And now I want to emphasize this again. You cannot skip levels. You can't just walk around being like, I'm it. Thinking you can play guitar like Eric Clapton does not mean you can play guitar like Eric Clapton. But knowing, okay, that is possible, and knowing that that's your natural state, you're wired to play like Eric Clapton. It's hard to put in words how empowering that is to get there. But it still takes a progression, a lot of work. And the 3 daily practices are question everything, don't take anything for granted, and study, reflect every single day. It's very simple daily practices. Maybe an hour and a half a day, and boom. A few years later, maybe you are playing guitar like Eric Clapton. But all along the way, you look out into the external world. You realize, man, all the ups and downs, all the opposites, all the entanglements, those terrible moments of discomfort, nothing really happened. Those highs of highs, those huge milestones, nothing really happened. And knowing where not to look, is nearly as valuable as knowing where to look. Nothing really happens. Good, bad, risk, ups, downs. It's a lot of security, freedom from care. When we start to recognize this ideal, and it gets reinforced by our experience that no matter what happens, nothing really happens. That is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.